Unsolved and Unseen, the podcast where the shadows hold secrets and the unspeakable waits to be discovered. From chilling mysteries to forgotten tales, join us as we uncover the stories the world has left behind. Are you ready to step into the unknown?
All right, welcome to episode 3 of Unsolved and Unseen, the podcast where we delve into chilling mysteries, true crime, the unexplained events that keep us up at night. I'm Chris. As always, joining me is my co-host Octavio, and today a special guest, Giovanni. Thanks for being here, Giovanni. This is the story of Staff Sergeant Dargan, who we had our guests come into a close personal encounter with some true crime. Octavio, off to you.
Well, again, Giovanni, thanks, man. Really appreciate you coming in, man, because I know this was a wild one, and it's going to be a wild one for our listeners. But I want to introduce our listeners to you, man. Giovanni Edwards, right? You served 10 years in the Army. Your MOS, for those non-military types, your career, your profession. You were a 25 Quebec's multi-channel transition systems operator and maintainer. What does that mean, right? Kind of jack of all trades, antenna systems, any type of equipment. You basically, you got hands on it, you integrated it, and you really supported the entire warfighter, right? You were a staff sergeant, so you were a non-commissioned officer. You spent 3.5 years with 82nd, where you deployed to Iraq. You did 2 years at Fort Bliss, 4 years with 2nd SFAB, where me and you obviously met. You deployed to Afghanistan and received a Bronze Star. You also deployed, to Italy and supported what I think it was like 10 plus missions, continuously in and out of Africa. And then you currently serve as a sales engineer, in really the defense space, right? Supporting the defense space. So, yeah, man. So, thanks, man. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Yeah. Chris, I don't think we've taken the opportunity to kind of tell our listeners, even a little bit of background. I want to kick it off to you, man. Give a little intro there.
Yeah, thanks. Episode 3. I guess we're a little late doing this. But yeah, no, I'm Chris. I spent 6 years in the Army as an infantry officer. Before that, I was in shipping. So on cargo ships doing the pirate stuff, think Captain Phillips. After I got out of the Army, I also went into the defense space. So all 3 of us are in that right now. And that's about it.
Yeah, no, thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah, no. So, I guess on that same note, right. So Octavio Mota spent, 14 years between Air Force enlisted to Army officer, did logistics to strategic and tactical comms. Enjoyed it, loved it. Unfortunately, due to a, serious injury, decided to, help out on this side of the, this side of the fence and, just like Giovanni and Chris, do some defense contracting. And continue to support the warfighter. But yeah, no, awesome. Yeah. So that being said, I think, guys, we should probably set the stage, right? It's a time and place where there's been a lot of recent events, across the entire Army, quite honestly, a lot of high visibility, cases, crime, murder, you name it. I think, Giovanni, we were probably talking about less than a year or two, the big incident at Fort Bliss had just gone down. Right. And then the beheading at a battalion that I was actually also in. And then here we are, a case with Staff Sergeant Dargan. So, what I got to say is I want to cover that morning, right? If you remember the morning of the day prior that Staff Sergeant Dargan committed what we now know to be this, heinous crime, heinous murder, and atrocity. The morning prior, he communicated with me and you and kind of, let us know what, some of the stuff he was going to do, some of the things, he needed to deconflict. And, I would like to say this, that started off like any normal day, right? Hey, we're ramping up. We're about to go out to an undisclosed area and, really need to take care of some family affairs, right? I mean, I'm sure that's what he communicated to you as well. Yeah. So what do you do, right? Like any good leaders, me and you immediately looked at each other like, yeah, sure, man, handle what you got to do, especially because, it sounds like it involves your wife. Next day, we got it. It'll just be me, Giovanni will handle the shop, let us know when you get back. And then, that way the following day we keep trucking along.
Octavio, let's talk about real quick. Who's who? Like, what are your guys' jobs and how's it all set up?
Yeah. No, that's good. So I was the, Battalion S6, which is basically a communications officer, a lot of, doing the planning, management of resources. And, Giovanni and Dargan are, the, NCOIC, and basically two NCOIC, right? Like if Dargan's out, this guy's running the show. And because the way the SFAB is structured, the reality is like NCOs of respective shops are also the executioners, and supporting various teams within the battalion. That's good context, Chris. I appreciate you bringing that up because that's what's happening, right? Here I am. I'm talking to my senior NCOIC, who's in charge of the shop in terms of execution, and he's letting me know, hey, got to take a day off, boss. Really got to go, handle some family affairs. Just like, can you and Giovanni, take care of it? And that's what me and Giovanni, of course, we're like, yeah, man, go handle your family affairs. We're talking about days out from ramping up and taking off and, blowing out. We're like, yeah, man, we know your wife has, some serious back pain. She constantly has to go to Charlotte, which is what he told us, right? Have to go to Charlotte and, take care of this medical stuff. So we think nothing of it, right? Next day, he's gone. We don't see of him. What, Giovanni, I think I got one text from him, man. Did you get anything else from that?
He was texting throughout the day, stuff that was going on in our little group chat. He'll respond, and that was pretty much it. So it was a couple text messages throughout the day.
Yeah, but
was he giving you updates? Was he giving you like updates, like, "Hey, I'm here at Charlotte, like at the hospital"?
Not me. No. Not me. Did you get anything? Yeah, no, nothing.
No. Okay.
Yeah. In fact, I didn't even get a back or anything. Not that we would micromanage, right? But the reality is, yeah. That's a good question, Chris. And I think so, Giovanni. I think where I'll hand it off is, so now it's the next day, right? It's like, we're doing, PT, and coincidentally, it's officer again, NCO, and people don't know, like we do these events, in the military to increase or, like Experitor Corps. And one of the events is always seeing how officers go against NCOs. And, I'll admit it, man, I don't know how many times I look forward to those events mainly because I like looking at my peers and being how, like, basically who, quite honestly, who didn't play sports, who doesn't have proper hand and eye coordination, or, I guess, for fellow officers, I don't know if it was the same thing for NCOs, Giovanni. It's like, hey, man, who didn't have a dad to throw the damn football around or some shit, but all jokes aside,
then you make fun of him for not having a dad.
Yeah. And then I do that, right? No, just really all jokes aside, it came down to just seeing how how you could tell the officers that just never played sports, man. It's always obvious, NCOs, soldiers always probably, played sports, did some extracurricular activities, you name it. Right. Well, anyways, so yeah, that morning, we're splitting off teams and it's uneven. And what's Dargan do? Hey, sir, you're probably enlisted. Come over to the, the NCO side. And me, Giovanni, a couple other soldiers and Dargan, we absolutely crushed them, dude. Right? We destroyed the officers. We're dabbing each other up. We're high-fiving Dargan. He's, letting us know it's completely like nothing out of the norm. Like we're having fun. And I think it's right around lunchtime. I get pulled aside by all these senior leaders after we finished physical training in the morning, gotten our task and ready to go, get the day started. It's getting close to lunchtime, and a whole bunch of senior leaders bring me in, right? And we're talking about people with 20 plus years of experience, and they're asking me all the questions, Giovanni, right? Uncomfortable stuff, right? And immediately, what do? You go to your training. All right, hang on. I haven't done anything illegal, unethical, immoral, because they're asking me, Chris, like, hey, where was, Staff Sergeant Dargan yesterday? What did you allow him to do yesterday? Where would you have any suspicion to believe he was anywhere else? And I'm thinking like, man, what the, can a guy not get his stuff in order, his family affairs in order, and what's so wrong? Like,
so
taking
was
your
this
wife.
Towards the end of the day, or is it like right after PT?
No, so it was around lunchtime. It was probably a little bit post lunch, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
If I could recall, I think it was a little bit post lunch. And so I'm getting all these questions, right? And and I'm answering them. I got nothing to hide. Again, nothing illegal and ethical and immoral. And you've seen a lot of crime. You guys have seen a lot of TV shows and crime, and true crime television and documentaries to know. All right, is it time to bring in the lawyer? Am I a suspect? Am I in question here? Am I? No, but this was all geared towards Dargan. So again, there's nothing. Of course, I was fully transparent. So I'll pause there and say, Giovanni, what? After PT, pick up on the day. What were you experiencing? What were some of the things you went through?
So after PT, like you said, like we crushed officers. We was having a great time playing football. It was a fun time. And it was one of those days to where we was able to wear, a button up and some nice slacks. We didn't have to wear our uniform that day. So the morale was already high. And we had you had gave us a couple of tasks, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but we executed it. I know we had to go to the library, go get some language training stuff. And then after that, we went to lunch. So it was me, Dargan, and, a couple of our soldiers. We went to go eat.
Wait. So I remember you telling me this, man. So like you guys hanged out for lunch. Like, was it like planned, or like, like you linked up with him, or how, explain that situation.
I mean, we're all together in one shop, so we're around each other all day long. So we just hey, we all need to go to the library anyway. Let's just, carpool. We took 2 cars. Dargan rode with me. The other soldiers, they all rode together. We went to the library. We did whatever we needed to do there, and then we just stayed right there on post and grabbed some. I think we went to Burger King, grabbed some lunch. We ate, and then we just head on back to the shop after that.
Yeah. So this is definitely after lunch. I'm getting the question in, and then Giovanni, walk me through what's happening like in the commo cage. And to explain the commo cage, right? This is a commo cage. Obviously it's a secure cage where we have a lot of communication equipment. And ours, like most other, organizations, was in a motor pool, right? Where it was even, another layer of physical security. And motor pool is where you have all your vehicles, other systems, platforms, you name it, right? So walk me through it. Like, what's kind of happening? I'm getting my questions. I'm not even looking at my phone. What's going on in your phone? What's going on in the Calmo cage? What were you experiencing? And
So on my side, like I said, we was all in a motor pool. We was finishing up whatever little things we had to do. We had sent a whole bunch of all the other soldiers home already, and there was one more soldier left with us. And we was like, hey, bro, you're good to go. Just go ahead and leave. I was like, all right. So he leaves out, and then I want to say within like 3 minutes, he sends a text message to the group chat, and it's basically saying like, hey, y'all be careful. CID is out here looking for someone. At least someone at least my height and my color, or my color. Sims was a little bit tall, and he's black. So I didn't
the famous text, right? The famous text that just blew up everybody's phones.
Yes. So no, I didn't think nothing of it. I'm just like, oh damn, they looking for somebody. Someone probably beat their wife, or
Like we were joking. We were joking in the chat, like, oh man, like something, tell me.
Exactly. And then Dargan had responded in there. He was like, who are they looking for? And like usually he don't respond to text messages in the group chat, but he responded to that one fast. And like I said, thought nothing of it. And that's when someone was like, they're looking someone my height, color, blah, 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 blah. So, okay. And then I want to say 2 minutes later, I had a couple other things to do. I had to send like an email and do some other things because it's about to be a 4-day. So it was about to be 4 days off of work. I had to make sure I did everything I needed to do. So when I come back in on Tuesday, I'm not playing catch up. And he was like, hey, bro, you're good to go. You go ahead and leave. It's like, no, like I got some stuff I need to do. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of it real quick. He was like, nah, bro. He's like, you're good to go, man. Just you have a good weekend. I was like, you sure? He's like, yeah, man, I'm good. Because
You're
usually
going to tell you
him,
twice.
yeah, usually me and him walk out together.
Yeah.
But he was like, nah, bro, you go ahead, you're good. I'm like, all right, bro. So I'm out. So I started walking out of the motor pool. I walk out and I can see like at the front gate, there's one police officer posted right there, and it was a female. You know, I went out there joking with her. I was like, "Oh, you out here trying to get me?" She's like, "Maybe." I'm like, "Nah, you ain't trying to get me. I didn't do nothing." And then she just laughed it off, and she knew it wasn't me. She's like, "Yeah, he don't fit the description." So I'm still walking,
and you're still not knowing.
No,
it sounds like you still don't know.
I still don't know because there's a whole bunch of other people in that motor pool. It could have been anybody. So I turned the corner, start walking towards my car. Then that's when I see all the other police officers. It was about 4 or 5 guys. They was kitted up. They had their plates on. They're all standing right there with their hands on their plates, just mugging me. And I'm just looking at them and like they're just grilling me. I was like, oh, these guys are intense. Like, all right, well, let me go ahead and get in my car and get up out of here.
Who else, Giovanni? I remember Georgia State Police. Who else did you see out there? So you remember?
I don't remember it being. I think it was Fayetteville Police. I don't think Georgia Police had made it yet. But
they hadn't made it yet. Okay,
they hadn't made it, but it was. I'm pretty sure it was the MPs and it was the Fayetteville Police.
And CID, right?
Is what I'm tracking. Yes.
Yeah.
So all of them was out here. And I know I had to go to the gas station. So I just made it to the gas station. And then that's when did you call me or did you text me? I can't remember.
Yeah, man. I can't remember. Definitely we talked. I felt like it was a call.
You text? No.
Yeah, no,
you text me.
Yeah.
You text me. You was like, because you was still on the red carpet, so you couldn't call me. So you was texting me.
That's right.
Like, bro.
That's right.
It's like, bro, Dargan got arrested. I'm like, no, he didn't. I was just with him. He was like, no, bro. CID was there for him. I was like, oh my goodness, what? And in my head, I'm thinking he just did something dumb. He probably did something dumb.
Sure. Sold some combo equipment, man. I don't know.
Did some scamming stuff or something. I'm like, he did something dumb. But
so before we go into why he was arrested, when you guys found out why, can you give like a quick sort of, I guess, profile on this Dargan guy? What's he like? How long has he been there? What was he acting like previous? Like just give me kind of like an idea of where his headspace was.
Giovanni, thoughts, man. You first.
Yeah, so Dargan, first of all, he was only there for about, I want to say this is probably like month 3. I want to say
that's about right.
It wasn't that long. And he was this guy is funny. I'm gonna tell you, like, he is hilarious. He will have you laughing all day long. He was cool. He was sociable. He wasn't mean or anything. He was a cool guy to be around. I had 0 issues with him, and he was taking over my spot, so I was happy about that. That I get to sit back and relax, and because I'm about to get out of here. But that day he didn't miss a beat. He was still cracking jokes. Like, you couldn't tell anything was wrong.
Yeah. I mean, Giovanni, I would tell you the same thing, right? If anybody ever asks, it's like, hey man, was there any signs? It's like, no, dude, calm, collected, same old Dargan, dry humor type personality, but it would have you laughing, right? And that day it was like, hey man, let's go. Like, hey, here's the task, condition standards, here's what we need to do. Yep. Check. Let's go. We'll go out and execute. Hey, I'll see you on the motor pill after lunch. Got to catch up on some last minute planning. And it was like, yep. Hey, roger that. We'll move out. We're, guys are ready to go. Here we are, like unexpected, completely unexpected, right? We, 200 plus people were probably still in the motor pool. Like, who are they looking for? Right. So good question, Chris.
So that makes it all the more shocking when we find out what he actually did. So Octavio, how did you kind of like how did it come to light to you?
Yeah. I mean, the reality is, like, one of the leaders, I don't think it was like indirect. I think at this point it was like, hey, cat's out of the bag. You're going to find out, right? He's officially been arrested. Right. And God, Giovanni, we found out later. I mean, they had, a whole bunch of information, which we'll talk about. Right. But I mean, Chris, if you want to pull up the link to kind of, now that we've described Dargan and given a profile, I mean, here's the heinous crime, right? What slips up from one of the leaders is, again, only full admittance, only after, he's been arrested. It's hey, the reason why we ask you all these questions, Octavio, is like, it's quite honestly is like, they have suspicion to believe he's committed a heinous crime. And I was just like,
which one do you want? You want the MSNBC one?
Yeah, I think yep. Yeah, if you could just pull up the kind of what pops up, right? Yeah, so.
Or NBC.
Yeah, right. So, the reality is, immediately, as it says there, right, at the, like at the top of the link, you'll see that, what we find out is he was suspected of committing a murder. More specifically, someone that he knew. It wasn't just some random act of violence. And then, of course, what, Giovanni, I think our messages in our group chats blew up until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, just to make sure we were going to get sworn statements and like get our story straight. Not that there was nothing to hide, from everyone else's. Like, we paid no part in, what he committed, but the reality is, you still wanted to make sure that they had a good understanding and sequence of the events, right? Yep. So what did he do? What we find out is, more specifically, he did not go to Charlotte, like I told me and Giovanni, and as we reported leaders, he ended up going to Georgia to link up with his, quote unquote mistress, right, if you will, who was having his, who was having his child, and she, so their unborn child, 33 weeks pregnant. What we found out is he actually, traced her down or chased her down, like located her and, followed her and unloaded, a clip or two. I mean, it had to be more than a clip. I mean, we're talking about, from what I recall, it was about 20 plus rounds. So, he killed her and the unborn child, and, came back. And that was, of course, the day that he was supposed to, as we believe, take his wife to Charlotte, deal with medical appointments, comes back the next day. And Chris, as you just heard, as anybody our listeners are hearing, is, dude, like, probably the definition of a psychopath, right? Like, showed no remorse. I mean, Giovanni, did you get remorse? I didn't see remorse, man. No. I really generally didn't see remorse. And, immediately just, went about his day like if it was a normal Army day. And that's essentially what happened, man. He, we found out later that, he had passed away, or I'm sorry, he had killed, that lady. Yeah.
So his girlfriend was 28 years old.
Yep.
Akalia Ware was her name. She was, like you said, 33 weeks pregnant. Yep. She was shot while on the highway. So I guess he must have pulled up beside her and started shooting. Is that right, Octavio?
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. I chased her down, basically, like, and I want to say he did it from his vehicle. He like just unloaded on her completely.
Sounds like it. And then she was shot while driving and then crashed. And he was charged with, looks like he pled guilty to malice murder, felony murder, feticide, which is killing a child, aggravated assault, and then possession of a firearm during the commission of a crime. Wow.
We found out, right? He completely unloaded, right? Like I said, committed the complete atrocity. Chris, you covered it as well, right? And the reality is where everything has sunk in. Everybody's tracking. Like, it's not a secret. I think, Giovanni, what would you find interesting? Like, what do you think were like, we're probably like the immediate next steps? I mean, I don't know if you remember, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, to process everything that happened, because, he told us that he was driving to Charlotte to go drop his wife off to an appointment. So now, in my mind, I start backtracking. I'm like, so what time did you have to leave to get to Georgia in time to meet her on the highway and unload a clip and kill her? So now, I kept going back. I'm like, okay, so he definitely left way before hours of going to PT, because if I remember correctly, that's about a 5.5 hour, 6 hour drive. So to be there by what time around this happened? What, 9 a.m. somewhere around that time that happened. Yeah. So that means he had to leave around 3 o'clock in the morning.
Definitely premeditated, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Without a doubt.
So then I start asking myself, okay, so what did he tell his wife to get out of the house at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah.
Because PT don't start till 6:30.
Interesting. Yeah. I didn't even think about that.
Exactly. Yeah. Granted, he did live like 45 minutes away because of where he lived, but still leaving around 3 o'clock in the morning, it doesn't add up. Yeah. So that's the first thing I started thinking about was how did he get out of the house around that time? And then the next thing was, okay, he gets there. How did you pinpoint exactly where she was at? Did you already have her location? Was you on the phone with her? Did you already know her schedule? Did you know you knew where she lived and you followed her? This is so many questions that we can't get these answers to, because how did you know? So that's the things that runs through my mind when I was thinking about the situation when it first happened.
Yeah. Or how about, dude, I'll tell you what I was thinking, because we talked about it the next day. Dude, you had this guy in your car. You were the last one in the cage with him. Man, how did this guy not, go nuclear on you? You know what I mean? I mean, who knows, man? But I'll tell you the other thing, Giovanni, is I will say this, man. I got to give it to the Army at being, we do a lot of things right. Sure, we do some things bad, but a lot of things right. And one of them, you got to admit, we talked about this before, even before, today's recording, is the process after to handle the family situation, his military equipment, and really breaking down next steps in that whole process, man. What do you recall about that infamous drive that we were, number one, we were dreading because we didn't know it was going to be us. We figured it would be the company commander and another senior leader, but tag you're it. You guys served with him the most. What do you remember? Do you recall that drive, and then, kind of set the stage what happened when we showed up, right?
Yeah. So from what I remember is that, you told me, it was hey, we, as in me and you and the chaplain, have to go to Dargan's house and collect his gear and talk to the wife about what's next. And I basically said to him, why do I have to go? Right?
Yeah. Uncomfortable, right?
Yeah, it's very uncomfortable. I don't want to go, but you was basically telling me no, you have to go also. I'm okay, all right. So the drive, which was not a short drive, it was about 45 minutes to an hour to get to his house. All three of us, we were just going over the game plan. Okay, this is what we're going to do.
That's fair. That's right.
Because we didn't want to go in there and just look like we was unprepared. So, all right, Giovanni, you're going to go grab the gear. You're going to locate the gear, grab it, get it secure. Chaplain, you and the chaplain was going to be, kind of talking to her, but not really talking to her yet until, we got everything secure. But she was, once we got there, she was very easygoing. She was very receptive. She was yes. He was very neat. He kept all his gear over here. It's all in one section, so it's not going to be hard. So we secured all the gear, put it in the back of your truck. And then that's when we sat down with her, and then you was going over the next steps.
Yeah. I'll tell you, Giovanni, I think, I think the rehearsals helps. Because it was so, it was immediate, right? It's hey, we got to take action. Here's the task. The following day, you got to go. Execute this, right? And so the reality is I'll tell you, man, the truck ride there definitely helped, because we were definitely running our rehearsals, and it was a couple factors played in, right? It was definitely smooth. It was definitely smoother because we ran the rehearsals, but everybody had their part to play, right? Chaplain definitely came in with that spiritual guidance, spiritual understanding, and how, when resources that come with that. And I came in with a formal, here's the Army process, here's the formality of what, where you're at in time and space, and the next, steps that you're going to experience. you as an individual, you as a spouse, and you as a family, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, the reality is we were really well prepared, in my opinion. I know people were like thinking like a 45-minute round. Like, no, I think we were prepared because Army had already kind of instilled, hey, these events happen, and we're a people organization, so you kind of know how to handle some of these stressful, uncomfortable situations, even when it is your own soldier, right? That's the reality, and so. That said, we when we were all sitting at the table, man, I'll tell you, I remember vividly where I looked across, I'm giving her all these questions and answers, and it definitely also helped that she was a veteran herself, so she understood, what she was receiving, right? It's like she's on the other end receiving counseling, she's on the other end receiving, information and support groups, and and what she needs to do to kind of get past this situation, if you will. I don't know if you really ever get past it, but that said, dude, I got to tell you, I remember corner of my eye, I said something, and all of a sudden the kiddos come right around the corner, man. How was your reaction, man? Because I remember seeing it. Thoughts on that?
So one of his sons was still there. I guess he didn't go to school that day or daycare, and he came around the corner, and I'm telling you, he looks just like him. Like a split image of him.
And there he is for those watching this on YouTube. Yeah.
Exactly. So what you see right there is exactly what his son looked like, and it got to me because when he came around the corner, he was already explaining some stuff to her, and she already had tears in her eyes, and then she started breaking down even more.
Yeah.
And my heart couldn't take that anymore. So that's when I excused myself because I couldn't bear any more of that. It was so thick in there. I was like, I have to get out of here because my heart can't take it. So I had to go outside, get some fresh air, and wait for you guys to finish, which wasn't too much longer. It was probably like another. I think Chaplain came out after me a couple minutes.
Yeah, no, I was going to tell you, man. I got to tell you, man. I got like respect to you both, but yeah, Chaplain followed suit not too long after you, man. Because I could tell it's one. He did what he needed to do, and he definitely knew like, hey, next step was probably a little bit more of a private conversation of like, all right, hey, more of what the only information that I could give him. So I think he knew his place. And then probably more importantly, I think same thing, man. I think it was starting to set in, as he's staring at the kids and family. It's like, okay, I probably need to step out, like we need to start giving her some space. We don't need to continuously overwhelm her. So, yeah. And then I think after the Chaplain, man, I think I wrapped up just a couple more things with her. Some more information, some more packets, phone number to be able to reach out, at least until, she gets all the proper support that she needs. We feel like there's a proper handover and transition.
I know he was going over the financials to make sure that she was good because for y'all that don't know, once you get incarcerated in the Army, you lose all of your benefits. So your pay stops. So it doesn't matter if you have a family or not, everything stops. So
that's right. You brought up the schools, right? The kids' schools, which was like a big key factor, man. I think drove that discussion, man. Like, were the kids like in local or like homeschool or like, well, I can't remember the situation, man.
Honestly, I can't remember.
Yeah. But it was a thing. I don't know if it was. I don't think it was homeschool. It was either like private or it was just a commute that was a very. It was definitely an expense that they had to consider. Yeah, I mean that's a good point, Giovanni. Like you're right, man. The benefits that come along with it.
They did have the house was pretty big, so I'm pretty sure it was able to afford it because of the double income. Her 100% disability, and then what he was making, what he was making as a staff sergeant.
Yeah, with that, basic allowance for housing, right? Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, well, I think at this point, Chris, what ended up happening was like, the next steps past that was, the reality is, trial, right? And Giovanni, I think you're right. It probably wasn't Georgia State Police that went out there, but and crossed those state lines. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. What I do know, it was Georgia who wanted to extradite him back, and we were constantly getting updates like, hey, like they're trying to get him out of Moore County Jail, like ASAP, if I'm not mistaken, I think is where he went, or Cumberland County, or wherever it was. I'm pretty sure it was Moore County, but they were trying to pull him, right? It's like, no, like, guys, we want him in Georgia. Like, he's going to get dealt with in Georgia. So, Chris, I think you have one of the links. I don't know if it's this one or the other one, but we talked about it, that there's, I think it was in 2023 was the last update. And the last time I think all of us got on a chat about him, and, he was criminally charged to serve life in prison with the ability of parole at like 60 years. And I don't know about y'all, man, but even with good behavior, I've never seen anything less than like 45 years, and, so that being said, I mean, what Dargan was early 30s, if I'm not mistaken, or what late 20s, early 30s, Giovanni? I think so.
Like early 30s.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, guys, just do some math, right? I mean, you're talking about 90-year-old, but before he even thinks about getting out or possibility with parole. So that said, I mean, that's really what happened, Chris. That was crazy story, and convicted of that heinous crime, and all within our battalion.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I still don't. I mean, we talked about this before we came on and everything, and I just still don't understand if he thought he was going to get away with it. Like, he came to work like nothing happened.
Correct.
Did he know that he was going to get caught? I have to assume that he knew he was going to get caught. It didn't seem like he was playing like, Heat. You seen that movie Heat, where they're just like shooting guns in the middle of the street in downtown LA? Like, there's no way he didn't think he was getting caught.
Well, Giovanni, you know what? They discussed this, man. Somebody brought up his time, man. What's your thoughts about some of those discussions about all of a sudden the FBI and CID were looking into like his past, man? What do you think, or what do you know about what you heard about his past? Especially like his previous assignment. Do you remember that? Do you recall what they talked about?
I honestly don't, but from my time with him, I knew he was kind of a wild person. So I'm like, he could have got himself into some trouble doing whatever he was doing. So
what was his previous assignment? He was a recruiter.
He was a recruiter
in Myrtle Beach, right?
Myrtle Beach,
South Carolina. Yeah. And I don't know, man. I remember there was discussions about, dude, like, this guy probably, we're going that far back. There's no way. This seems like he has done this in the past. And, of course, we never followed up with that. I mean, clearly, honestly, they had enough to convict him where, they probably didn't need to. Not that they shouldn't serve justice if he had committed other crimes, but clearly, I don't know. They probably never really dug into it too much. Who knows, man?
Probably not.
Yeah. But that does remind me, though, that, I got to tell you, man, like, there was a video on there that talks about the family members of the victim. And, I know he was a soldier. I know we served with him, but, hey, man, like, the dude was a murderer, man. Give him the book, but I'll tell you, there is one comment, and they said, hey, look, the reality is he's in jail. He'll still be able to see his kids grow or hear about how his kids are doing, and vice versa. It was like, this mother left behind, what was it, Chris? 4 kids, if I'm not mistaken.
Which one? Miss Ware?
Miss Ware. Yeah.
She left behind 5 kids.
5 kids. Yeah. So it's like, dude, like, they'll never get to, she'll never get to see her kids grow up. Right. She'll never be able to, like, see their birthdays, how they did, graduate high school, college. So I got to tell you guys,
her mother put on a fundraiser just for her kids. I'll pull it up now. But if anybody wants to go ahead and like donate, it's kind of old, but this is years ago. But Aquila Ware's Children's Fund. So they raised $2,100 of $5,000. So they got about halfway there. Yeah. Anybody listening, go ahead and donate if you want.
Yeah.
And then another interesting thing I think I read is that usually she would be taking all of her kids to school that morning, but this just so happened this morning she didn't. So imagine if all of the kids were in a car.
Yeah. And she's a professional, right? Like a registered nurse or something.
I think she was an RN, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's crazy, man. I didn't
even imagine if all the kids were in a car and he did that.
Yeah. Clearly no care. I mean, no regard of life, so.
Or would have changed his mind if they all was in there.
Dang. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. Well, it's, one thing we can say, and I think that's probably one of my last comments, man, is Giovanni, that the wife made it really clear, Sergeant Dargan's wife, they could have talked it out. And it's things that me and you and the rest of the leaders talked about. It's like, dude, nothing in this life is worth taking your own life or taking someone else's life, amongst other sins and crimes. But, that's definitely at the top, because the reality is, here she is. And she was like, look, I don't know why, I don't know what, dawned on him, because nothing that he could have said or told me or done, any action that he had committed would have, not allowed me to. I wouldn't say she said forgive, but definitely understand or be understanding. Meaning, like, hey, man, they probably could have worked out. Maybe they separated. Maybe they stayed together, got counseling. But but the reality is, like, she fully is basically saying, like, he didn't have to take her life, his unborn child, and then now destroy two families in the process, right? They definitely could have worked something out. And I found that very strong of her and respect to her. And, but at the same time, tragic that, at the end of the day, two families are destroyed, right?
Exactly. Because I wish she would have just talked to us, honestly.
Yeah.
All this could have been solved.
Yeah. We were problem solvers, Giovanni. We were, man.
That was our job.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, if you're a soldier, I think that's a good comment. Yeah.
Dargan's wife made a statement to WRAL. She said she's still puzzled about his affair with Ware and his actions, but she says, in quote, "This is something our family has struggled with. I don't think we'll ever make sense of it." And then Miss Ware, the victim's mother, said, "We're at a loss for words to explain this to the kids. It's just senseless to take her life and an unborn baby's life."
I mean, and Giovanni, that checks out.
It says, while Brianna Dargan said she'll continue to support her husband, she expressed condolences to the Ware family.
I mean, Giovanni, that checks out. Like, I mean, Chris, I never even seen those statements, man. And I'll tell you, like, honest to God, that checks out with everything me and Giovanni knew about her, man. She was just like, it sounded like, they could have walked it, they could have worked this through, man. Like,
easily, they could have.
Yeah.
And even if they couldn't, so be it. You made your mistake. Now you gotta own up to it.
Yeah. Giovanni, any saving rounds, man, about this whole situation? Any advice to soldiers or anybody listening out there?
To all the soldiers, if you ever find yourself in a situation, that's what the leaders are there for. I know some leaders that you can't trust, or there's some leaders that just wearing stripes just to wear stripes, but at least talk to somebody that you trust and, that can help you make a sound decision, because this should not have happened. It definitely should not have happened. We have way too much training, way too much resilience training. We are very skilled in profession, and something like this should never happen. So just use your resources and talk to someone. Don't keep all that bottled in.
No.
So that's my advice to.
I mean, hell, even if you don't trust anybody, you go to the chaplain. Go to the chaplain. They can't tell 100%. Anybody anything that you tell them.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. And it's interesting, man. No, I completely agree, gentlemen. I don't think, this is not one to add. Like, you guys nailed it, man. Like, go to all the right resources. There's plenty. I would tell you, Army has, it's like no other organization. They have plenty of resources, and starting with leaders, right? There's not a shortage of that. Yeah. Great job, gentlemen.
Yeah. Well, and then also on the, just real quick, also on the flip side, try to be that trusted person for at least one. At least one
good point,
guy.
Chris.
You know what I mean? Like, it's also point. It's a team. Everybody's a team, right? Especially for folks that are in the Army.
Man,
that
Chris,
guy that somebody can come to.
Yeah, man, dude. I gotta tell you, man. Like, dude. Thank God we didn't end it there, man. Great job. Now, Chris. Like, the reality is, it's a two-way street of communication. I mean, Johnny, we're combos. And how many times we used to joke about that, right? There's a transmit, there's a receiver, and there's a medium, right? You know, communications is a two-way street, and it literally is, man, because that's how it's designed. And it starts like that even in a personal, you know, from a personal standpoint, Chris, you know, it's a two-way street, man. Try to be that leader that, you know, guess what, man? You know, people can come to you with this kind of serious situation because, you know, that's really what they need, you know? So awesome. Yeah, Chris, I want to close this out, man.
Thanks. I don't have a closing.